All right, welcome back to another episode of Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics. My name is Troy, aka Keep Troy Blue. With me, as always, is Kathy Cannon, aka Cannon's Fodder. Happy New Year, Kathy. Sounds like you've had a very exciting couple of weeks. Got a new car there, new ride.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty exciting heading into 2024, right? With those like leather seats with butt warmers and all that stuff. That's pretty
Oh my
exciting.
God. I have air conditioned seats, and I don't know if you know, but
Air
summer
conditioned
in
seats.
Florida, air conditioned seats, whew, game changer, man. That is game changer shit.
Your seat just gets cold or something? Is that how that works? Like,
Like I guess no, it's got a little like air conditioning hole. I don't
oh,
know. I haven't used it yet because it's 60 degrees outside, so I've been using the seat
which
heaters.
is cold
Um,
apparently.
it's fucking freezing, but it's you don't understand. Like it's a different kind of cold in Florida. It's like in your bones cold. It's humid cold, and humid cold is terrible. Like I don't know how to explain it to people, but even my
Okay,
friend from New York admits Florida cold is just a different
it's
cold.
just different. Yeah, I could see that. That makes sense. It's just different. It
Like
just
my
hits
dad was
different
wearing,
in a
I
swamp.
know, like my dad was looking for long johns the other night, and he had his toque on and everything. I was like, "Dad, you're officially a Floridian." They got a toque and a freaking winter coat on in 60 degrees. Oh, it was so cute.
Well, anyway,
He's
Happy
like, he
New
was like a
Year,
fan of it.
Merry Christmas, all that
Merry
stuff. We're
Christmas,
heading into
man.
2024. Biden gave the Israelis a little Christmas gift there with the new arms shipment or new approval for new arms shipment to Israel bypassing Congress. So that one stung a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I've been a pretty staunch Biden defender. I think that stung a lot of people. I even saw Harry Sisson the other night, like criticizing Biden for that. We have a lot of, not a lot, we had a few Biden staffers resign over that. Not a good look. Not a good look when we're trying to sort of solidify the youth vote and make sure that we don't lose too much of that youth vote. Although I still don't think we will. But I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I don't really want to get into it too much, but just pretty disappointing
Um,
that at this point Biden would not see that was not a good idea to send more
um,
weapons to Israel.
yeah, I would say, and this is where I'm just going to be, if I'm being as gracious as possible, just because we're not unpacking the can of worms. So, devil's advocate, if you will. Um, Given his knowledge and experience of the complexity of the issue, if there's a reason he's doing it, I want to think there's a good reason.
I think he
Um,
wouldn't. I don't think he's. Yeah, I think he had a reason to do it. I agree. Yeah.
right. And I'm going to say that I don't like the outcome, but I think if I better understood the reason, and I think I probably have a better understanding than most, and it has a lot to do with just the complexity of the geopolitics that we're again not going to get into. But I did a video on TikTok if anyone's curious. I did a little rabbity hole one kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I think I want to think there's a reason that we just don't know yet.
Well, it's
Otherwise,
getting bad. It's
suck my
getting really
cock.
bad. And aside from some sort of talking heads on Fox News, I think people are starting to realize that this is not a good look. It's just gone on way too long, way too far. Over 20,000, approaching 30,000 now, I think. It's
Yeah.
pretty bad. So it's time to stop. It's time to stop the bombing and come up with a different solution there. It's just way too many civilian casualties to be justified at this point.
I
So
think the solution will be get BB out. That's what I
yeah.
think the solution's going
Which,
to be.
by
And
the
I
way,
think,
the other news on that was that the Israeli Supreme Court rejected his judicial realignment proposal. So that was a win for Israeli democracy, such as it is. But yeah, so
mhm.
Bibi none too popular there. I don't know. Aren't they committed to not holding elections while this conflict is going on? That's such a typical like fascist.
Maybe I don't know about that. I can't remember, but that's part of my thinking here, and this is the only little tangent I'll take on it. Is like popularity wise, BB's losing what little ground he had to stand on anyway. So my guess is that if this last weapons delivery is in exchange for some wheeling and dealing to get him
Maybe
out, at least that's my dream, right? Like
that's
that would
very
be a perfect scenario for me.
Biden esque.
Hmm.
Or to exchange that for something, or to say like, all right, this is it. This is the last one you
Hmm.
get, or something, or at least this is the last one you get without like American congressional approval.
This is the last one you get with Benjamin Netanyahu at the helm,
There you go,
perhaps.
something like that.
Right? Like and
Yeah,
that's very Joe Biden is
that is
my
very Biden. That's a very like sort of behind the
mhm.
scenes Biden move that he would do. I guess I just don't like Biden's not Bush, you know what I mean? Biden's just not like a
Yeah,
warmongery
he's
sort
not a
of
warmonger,
military
but he does
industrial
know.
complex kind of guy.
Yeah, but he has been in
Um,
Congress through a lot of wars, so he knows how to fight them, right?
right.
Um,
So it was just yeah, I
but
mean, it's just interesting to see like even Harry was disappointed by that. Epstein files released.
ooh.
Kathy and Troy marked safe from being on Epstein's list. No trips to Epstein Island for us.
Um,
Is it weird that I felt like sort of a sense of relief about that? I was like, I am not on
what?
Epstein's list at all. Like I've
Well,
never.
why would you have been,
I know
Troy?
why
Are
would I
there
have been?
stories we should be unpacking on your side? Because we can embarrass you
No,
for
not even
once.
a little bit. It's just it's weird. I had that moment of like I had this moment of like, you know what? I like you know, I no one
Maybe
has
it's just
anything on
like,
me. I'm good. I go about my
what
day.
if it's like the collective trauma of being a white man in America?
Yeah, maybe. I'm just used to being
I
blamed for
wasn't on
everything. Like
Epstein's
at
list.
some point, somebody's gonna find some kind of dirt on me, but it's not this. So Epstein, yeah,
Mhm.
Epstein files released. Of course, everybody's losing their goddamn mind over this.
Did I see Chris Tucker was on the list? Did
Chris
I
Tucker,
like?
I didn't. Maybe
I think I might have fever dreamed that. Who knows? But
it's a little weird because okay, for Bill Clinton is an example. Like just being mentioned in the documents doesn't necessarily mean that you're like that you were like molesting children or whatever. Clinton's an example. Like Clinton's mentioned like 56 times or something, but never specific because he was there, he was around a lot, but never specifically like diddling little kids. At least so far. There's more that's going to come out too, but I
oh
mean, it's
yeah,
not a good look for Clinton to have been that involved anyway. But I don't think it's that bad yet for Clinton, as opposed to like Alan Dershowitz, who like very specifically mentions like they're having sex with somebody in these documents. So not a good look for
yeah.
Alan Dershowitz. He might be going down.
Well, you can tell he's in trouble because did you see him freak out on TV about it? Like he did
Yeah,
an
well, yeah,
interview,
he had
I
a
want to
meltdown.
say
Yeah.
with Newsmax. Yeah, like remember the 2018 gubernatorial debate, Ron DeSantis, Andrew Gillum, a hit dog will holler, right? And whoo, Dershowitz, calm down, baby. You're telling on yourself, right? Like nobody melts down that much unless they know they're guilty, you
Yeah,
know?
and he came right out too. He
Hmm.
was ready to go. So I mean, he was on I think it was Fox. He was on
Crazy.
Fox like immediately. So yeah,
And
not
Fox, Newsmax, they're all the same to me. Whatever, you know,
well. He probably
right
did
wing
Newsmax too. I'm not
media.
as plugged into the Newsmax universe, but yeah.
I think I just saw the
Uh,
clip online, but fucking wow.
so Trump not mentioned yet. Again, there's more to come. But at this point, I have to think that like I don't know if this is going to be the one that I don't know if Trump it was a like an Epstein client per se. It's sort of like I think Trump moved in kind of the Clinton sphere. Like they knew he was friends with Epstein. They spent a lot of time together. I just think that if Trump was involved in something of this magnitude, we probably would have known already. I don't know. I'm just not holding out much hope. I think we have enough to burn Trump on without like sitting here crossing our fingers that he was actually like on Epstein's island. I don't know if you have or at least on Epstein's island, molesting little kids, but I don't know if you have a different thought on that. I feel like we would have known
Um,
already.
I feel like they were probably competitors with each other more than clients of each other because I told you about the Mar-a-Lago girls growing up, right? Like
Yeah.
it was well understood that the Mar-a-Lago girls,
Well,
but yeah,
I don't know that even he like needed Epstein. He designed his
that's
own
what I
little
mean.
like
Yeah,
Miss Teen USA pageant or whatever, and that was his
that's what I
that was
mean.
his outlet for that. So
Yep, he was
yeah.
more, the other guy in the business.
Yeah. They were competitors. They were friendly
He
competition.
was the poor man's Epstein. That's what he was. He was poor
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Wasn't FC like a
I
billionaire or
hate
something?
myself. Yeah.
Uh,
He
so
was
not
get
mentioned.
away with murder rich, right? Get away with
Also not
murder.
mentioned was Barack Obama or Joe Biden. That just kind of conveniently went away. There were a lot of right wing talking heads there, or at least on Twitter, the garbage right on Twitter suggesting that Barack Obama would be on that list, and like all the all the Democrats in Congress, Nancy Pelosi or whatever would be on the list. I don't know. They don't know what the fuck they're
It
talking about.
still fascinates me that they are trying to sell Barack Obama as some like depraved like
It's so
he's
weird.
the only squeaky clean president that we've like ever had, personal life wise, right? Like, and if anybody's shit was going to be exposed, it would have been Obama's, right?
Oh yeah.
Like their entire life was dedicated to finding shit on Obama, and all they found was a tan suit and he smoked pot in college.
And
welcome to everyone,
a fake
right?
scandal on his birth certificate, like he wasn't born here.
Right. Like, and I was like, literally the only presidents that had any sort of like moral integrity in his personal life, and you're still trying to paint him like happily married, like gushes in love with his wife. No president loves his wife as much as Obama loves Michelle, right?
That's the
Like,
angle they're hitting now. Do you follow the like Michelle Obama is a man type stuff?
oh,
That's a
been
level
around
of like
forever.
sleaze on the internet that I don't think people are necessarily prepared for. But I have to like delve into the world of like I have to follow people that are in the like Michelle Obama is secretly a man, like that level of stuff.
Yeah,
But
I live in
again, like that's
Florida, so I'm
again they
aware
have
of
to
that
make up.
whole.
They always have to go after like his streaks or whatever. But it's hilarious that like Barack Obama hasn't been president for 8 years, and they're still targeting. They're still trying to come up with like Barack Obama conspiracies. But yeah,
Yeah, I know.
just shows you
It's
how
important.
strong he was as a president.
I can't wait for him to come out on the campaign trail again. It's gonna make me so happy. Like when
I
he
think
starts
he's on
doing
it.
the then
It
stuff.
was like what was it this morning or something? There was a headline that like Barack Obama is concerned about Joe Biden's campaign. Blah blah blah. So,
Mm-mm.
but yeah,
Let's just see. We'll
the
see.
depths
We'll
that these
see.
people will go to try to prove that Michelle Obama is actually Michael Obama and actually still has a penis. There is like footage of
This
Michelle
is so
Obama's alleged
creepy and
penis.
gross.
Yeah, that's the level. That's the type of people we're dealing with here. The other thing on this was the Jimmy Kimmel saga. Did you follow that at all this week
No,
on
I've been,
Epstein?
a bit distracted this week. So you got to
Yeah.
fill me in on the news.
So Aaron Rodgers, sort of notoriously, Aaron Rodgers, quarterback, NFL quarterback for the New York Jets, used to play for the Green Bay Packers. Total asshole, just one of like the worst people in sports. He notoriously has a beef with Jimmy Kimmel. But anyway, Rodgers was on some ESPN show, the Pat McAfee show, and basically insinuated, because this was right before the Epstein list came out, insinuated that Jimmy Kimmel's name would be on the list. He said something like, there's a lot of people, they're dreading that list coming out. Jimmy Kimmel's hoping that list won't come out. The other guys sort of nervously laughed on the show, but just basically insinuating that Jimmy Kimmel would be on Epstein's client list. Kimmel was pissed. He tweeted like, "Hey asshole, this you want to like
Hmm.
put my family at risk, we can discuss it in court." Basically threatens to sue him.
Wow.
And then the same sort of garbage on Twitter that the Michelle Obama is a man type caliber of people on Twitter started circulating a fake document, a fake legal document in the style of what was seen on the Epstein files
Hmm.
that like listed Jimmy Kimmel, like had a witness testimony about Jimmy Kimmel having sex with, like, getting a massage from, and then having sex with an underage girl. And the people on Twitter were like, "Hey Kimmel, do you want to explain this?" It was so obviously faked. And the person that generated the document came out and said almost immediately, because I think she realized that she was probably going to be named in the lawsuit. If Kimmel does sue, I think X is going to be named in the lawsuit eventually. But she came out immediately and said that like it was guys, it's fake. It's just a joke. It was just a joke. But it was too late. Like it had spread like wildfire, and there's still people on Twitter spreading this fake document that alleges or that is like a fake testimony of an underage girl saying that they had sex with Jimmy Kimmel. So just just a little bit out of control there. And then Fox was on this week like mocking Kimmel for threatening to sue Aaron Rodgers over that. But this is the world we live in, man. They can just make shit up about people and destroy people's reputations. I hope Jimmy Kimmel fucking sues everybody. I hope he sues Rogers. I hope he sues. The other thing is that this show was on ESPN, which is owned by ABC, which is the network that has Jimmy Kimmel's show. So they're on the same goddamn network. So I don't know. I hope that's
Oh, that adds a level of complexity to it that's going to be fun. Like I was already smirking to myself about the potential court,
yeah.
challenge here because Hustler Falwell,
Oh yeah.
malicious whatever libels and stuff. Oh, he will sue him.
I think he should. I think it just went way too far. It's not a case where Kimmel can just, in this politically charged environment. It's not a case, I think, where Kimmel can just shrug it off. It's blatant defamation by a lot of different types of people. Rogers started it, but there's a lot of sort of a coordinated effort to smear Jimmy Kimmel, and the woman that faked the document, like it, even just admitting that it was faked, is sort of implicating herself in this scheme. I think he should sue X. Just this would be a good case, the first sort of major defamation case against Elon Musk's X. Just how quickly
Mm,
misinformation can spread on that
yeah,
platform. So
actually, That's a good point. I was thinking, I wouldn't be surprised if ABC bans Aaron Rodgers from appearing on ESPN ever again or on
Yeah,
any ABC show anywhere because
yeah.
he's about to cost them fucking millions. Like,
Well, yeah, and then Pat McAfee, the ESPN host, like quickly apologized for Rogers' comments, trying to save his own ass because I'm sure Jimmy Kimmel is a more
mhm.
valuable property to ABC than Pat McAfee is.
Well, that
But yeah,
and
we'll
then an
see.
Aaron Rodgers interview.
Aaron Rodgers is such a fucking scumbag. I can't
I
stand that
know he
guy.
really is. He like looks like a dirtbag. Like the dirtbag look people have. He looks like a dirtbag.
Yeah.
Girls probably know what I mean by that better. Like if Aaron Rodgers came up to you in a bar, you would get the ick.
I don't even think, is he married? I don't know. He probably is. He's probably, I don't know.
Probably because he's got millions of dollars,
He's married
but
to one of Epstein's
he's
girls. I don't
married
know.
to one of the
Something.
girls that would put up with a guy like Aaron
He's,
Rodgers for
yeah, he's
millions of
just icky. He's
dollars.
gross.
There are people
Uh,
like, and there are men like that. There are just people like that will put up with any level of garbage if it means they get to be rich.
Rogers famously, when asked about his vaccination, COVID vaccine status, said that he was uh, inoculated against COVID, insinuating that he was vaccinated. And it later came out that he was joking and saying that he was immune to COVID because he'd had COVID and he wasn't vaccinated. So, like,
I think I
famously
remember
just
that.
like refusing to adhere to and the NFL's vaccination standards, putting his fellow players at risk and lying about it.
I
So,
remember that. I had
not a good
forgotten
guy.
about that, but I do. I remember that.
Anyway, I hope Kimmel sues everybody. I hope he
I
sues
do
these
too.
people into poverty.
I do
Um,
too. That'd be wonderful. Be the best thing
and
ever.
I hope Rogers gets banned from ESPN. Speaking of icky scumbags, the NRA CEO, NRA, I guess technically now he's the executive vice president. NRA leader Wayne LaPierre resigned this week. Leader of the NRA in some capacity or another since the late 1970s. Wow, what a disastrous career of corruption and just presiding over presiding over the NRA during the period where the NRA shifted famously from a responsible gun ownership promotion organization, gun safety organization, gun safety education
Mm-hmm.
organization, actually was in favor of a lot of gun control measures, to just becoming what we know it now. Really shifted in the 80s and 90s to just being this almost militant gun rights lobby, no gun laws ever for anyone, coinciding with the dismantling of common sense gun reforms, common sense gun laws in the United States, assault weapons bans, dismantling, and then the rise of school shooting as a phenomenon and mass shooting
Mm-hmm.
as a common phenomenon in the United States. Wayne LaPierre never being publicly apologetic or remorseful for the role that his organization has played in this basically cancer on American society, what the NRA has done to American society. But he is on his way out. He resigned this week. So, what are your thoughts on that? Kathy?
Ooh.
On good old Wayne?
Um, he resigned what? Because there's that big lawsuit, right?
Yeah. There's a lawsuit. I'm going to get to his finances in a minute, but yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I was gonna say, my thinking is, and I've thought this for a long time. This is one of those weird hills I'm willing to die on. Is that the NRA is essentially a money laundering front and has been for a very long time, and
Mm,
that this lawsuit I think has proven that. And like you said, just a legacy of corruption. Very well, probably started with LaPierre. He had a lot to do with it. The expansion of American gun culture, because like the way people think, feel, and act about guns now is very different than they did when we were kids, right? Like there were people who liked guns, there were people who hunted, right? There was that, but the kind of gun culture, you know what I mean? Like that rabid gun ownership, I don't remember being a thing until
right.
like the late 90s, early 2000s, and really amped up post 9/11. And that's got this guy's fingerprints all over it. So he really did a lot to make America a much more violent society,
Mm-hmm.
um, which the NRA was not meant to be. It's
Yeah.
just good fucking riddance to him.
Good.
Good fucking
Moving from
riddance.
an organization
Yeah.
that was really focused on like the idea of sportsman having a hunter culture, a sportsman culture, gun safety,
Yeah, wasn't there
guns
like the Eddie
for
the Eagle guy or something? Was that his name?
like at most they would advocate for gun ownership in terms of like personal safety. They transformed from that into being this like advocate of like Second Amendment, overthrow the government type stuff.
Yeah.
There were people, and the NRA leans heavily into the sort of prepper people who just amass hundreds and hundreds of guns in their home in anticipation for the federal government becoming tyrannical, and spreading that message that every
Mhm.
American needs an AR-15 to protect themselves against the government. Just insanity, absolute
Yeah.
insanity.
Like, I remember when I was a kid, I had a friend who took, like, an NRA kids gun safety course, and it was like a little
Yeah,
cartoon eagle that taught them about, proper gun safety and, like, when to use a gun and when not to use a gun, and it was, a lot more focused on how to have a gun without using it, right? Like, the shift in the NRA philosophy from not using your gun unless you have to using your gun because you can
yeah,
was a profoundly significant one, you know?
right.
Yeah.
Wayne LaPierre, notoriously corrupt. That 4 year long investigation by New York Attorney General Letitia James, by the way, is going to trial. This is absolutely the reason why he's resigning. Investigation not only into him but into the organization as a whole. LaPierre famously used the NRA while he was president, used it as his own personal piggy bank. He once spent $40,000 of IRA funds at a boutique in Beverly Hills on a single day. He spent,
$40,000
yeah, $40,000 of not his money, IRA money, or not IRA money, NRA
NRA.
money. Sorry, NRA money. He also spent more than $250,000. He logged a quarter of $1 million in travel expenses to Palm Beach, Bahamas, Lake Como, Italy. A lot of these destinations, citing them for business purposes. Apparently, the NRA had business in Lake Como, Italy, that he had to log travel expenses for. His
There's a mob there, maybe they did.
His personal aide, Millie Harlow, dropped $40K on her son's wedding, all in NRA funds and other personal expenses. So just corrupt as fuck.
It's, like,
This is a
shamelessly corrupt, you
this
know?
is again a nonprofit organization with a stated mission. It is a lobbyist organization. It is a membership organization. People pay to join the NRA, and they were using membership funds collected from people's memberships on personal expenses. So yeah, just a giant fucking money laundering operation essentially.
Wow,
They
wow,
they
wow.
filed for bankruptcy in Texas at the beginning of this investigation because again they're headquartered in New York City, which is why the New York AG is going after them. They filed for bankruptcy 3 years ago when the investigation was kicking off in Texas in an attempt to move the organization out of New York to avoid trial. That was rejected by a Texas judge who ruled that the NRA was declaring bankruptcy, quote, to address a regulatory enforcement problem, not a financial one, end quote. LaPierre
Wow.
was also notoriously weak and easily bullied by members of his own organization, especially being bullied into approving like crappy expenditures and personal expenditures. Um, they used to say that if you could get into LaPierre's office, he would approve you spending NRA funds on whatever you wanted. NRA board member
Wow.
Wayne Anthony Ross once said that LaPierre had, quote, the backbone of a chocolate eclair, end quote. Just like a notoriously weird guy, like very very sensitive, very quiet, like easily offended by everybody. Just this kind of a strange guy. Also, apparently, he couldn't shoot. There's video footage of him missing an elephant from point blank range.
That is
He,
hilarious.
he couldn't hit the broadside of an elephant with a rifle, but yeah.
I bet
Oh,
that's true of Ron DeSantis too. I bet they have similar personalities, LaPierre and Ron DeSantis.
yeah, I think he is kind of like he does kind of read as like a Ron DeSantis guy, just like really awkward and weird, and like you just don't want to be around the guy. That's kind
Yeah.
of the caliber.
Just an arrogant pushover, which is the
Yeah.
worst kind. Like, how dare you be that obnoxious and that spineless at the same time, right? Like,
So the end of an era. I'm sure the NRA is not going anywhere, but uh,
I wish it would. I wish it would.
Wayne LaPierre is
Yeah.
done, resigned. We'll see what the outcome of that trial is. Trump disqualified again from Maine and Maine and Colorado ballots, primary ballots. We found out this week that SCOTUS will hear the Colorado case. The Colorado case was the Colorado Supreme Court ruling in a 4-3 decision to boot Trump from the primary ballot over the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause, deferring their larger decision to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court has taken up that case. So U.S. Supreme Court will be making a determination about Trump's disqualification on the 14th Amendment. Could, again, ostensibly just for Colorado, but there's, like we've seen in the past, in many cases now over the past few decades, that the Supreme Court can overstep that and do whatever they want. Well, I have no doubt that they will restore him to the ballot. I don't know that this is going to go anywhere, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Woo, boy, do I have thoughts. I have thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
So Colorado's was a lawsuit, right? Maine, I think it was just their election officials.
Yeah, Colorado was a little bit more legitimate than Maine. Colorado was a result of a lawsuit brought actually by a group of Republican voters that made it to the Colorado Supreme Court. So it was a lot of due process in Colorado. Maine was literally just the Secretary of State, like, ruling on her own that they couldn't run. So,
yeah. But I think I read something about how Maine's laws are written such that, like, she's under Maine law allowed to do that, so it'll be a challenge to the Maine law,
Yeah.
I'm assuming. But boy, do I have okay. So first of all, Maine and Colorado are both swing states. Like, people don't like to think of Maine as a swing state because it generally goes blue, but it's got a Republican lean to it. You know what I mean? Because
it's one of those like conservative New England states. Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of like New Hampshire. Like it's a little bit of a wild card, but it's not, because the reason the state goes blue is because they split their electoral votes. So it's always like 2 Democrat, 1 Republican kind of thing, which is interesting. And then Colorado is newly leaning blue, but also still a swing state. And the fact that it's Republican voters in Colorado is what gives me the thoughts here. The thing that I think is brilliant about the Colorado case is how they have actually cited, I think, Alito and Kavanaugh in their either in their ruling or in like the amicus briefs that have been submitted, right? Like, they're using SCOTUS judges' words to make the case that, like, their ruling is correct, right? So they've put the guys in a really, 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 like, sticky situation. Like, court legitimacy is already at an all-time low, right? So there's also this hanging in the air. There's Trump's rhetoric about it, that the Supreme Court will handle it. His lawyer legit came out on television and said that they basically owe him a favor or whatever. Okay. Do I think, like, as a human person that lives in America and has been, like, seeing American politics since Bush v. Gore, that the court will put Trump back on the ballot? There's a definite chance of that. However, I like to do the, like, what if thing. So do we want a canon what if thing?
Oh, yes, please do. Please do. Yeah.
Because there's this world wherein I want the court to redeem itself, right? Where I want John Roberts to redeem himself. I want the history books to have, like, the moment where it turns around, right? Because Churchill, right? Americans do the right thing. They try all the wrong things first.
You are so hopeful.
I am a Sagittarius
such an optimist.
rising. What do you want from me? All right. Like, this is who I am, Troy. But, like, it's Republican voters that brought the case to Colorado, okay? Which means, and I've said this for a long time, that there's enough of the Republican Party that is fed the fuck up with Donald Trump, okay? Just fed the fuck up and want him to go away, that understands that he very well could win the nomination and then get convicted of felonies, which creates a situation because, like, whatever, like, how
isn't that why they did it? It was like a fear of, the Republican nominee being in jail, basically, something like that.
Sort of, and that's like, and that truthfully was the case DeSantis was trying to make for himself, right? Like, we just need a candidate that we know, that we know can come through for it. And I think that Haley picking up steam in the primary has given the courtroom to rule here, if that makes sense. I know that sounds really, like, cynical of me, right? But, like, if Ron DeSantis had still been like the second number 2 guy in the Republican primary race, I feel like they'll put Trump back on the ballot, right? Because Ron DeSantis is putting fingers, right? He's not winning. He's not winning anything, right? His feet will be hurting from the heels by November, right? He's just
Oh,
not
he's so sore
built
right
for.
now. Oh my god.
It's just not built for the long game, right? He ain't got it in him. But Nikki Haley being able to kind of like pick up some steam, pick up some donors, all of that. She fumbled a few things over the Christmas break, I know, in terms of very easy questions, but
Not even gonna get
it's
into
fine.
that, but yeah, she blew that shit.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah, yeah.
she's blowing the game.
Whatever, right? But if she's the Republican nominee, they stand a better chance against Biden than they do with anybody other than Trump. Does that kind of make sense? Because
Right. Oh
she's
yeah.
among the crazy Republicans, the most reasonable of them. And again, because I'd like to be optimistic, I would like to think that she would at least pull them back to just George W. era Republicans, which was terrible, but better somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe those
which is still
words just came
baffling.
out of my mouth. Like 20 year ago me, I felt smack me in the head.
Yeah.
Anyhow, though, sorry, 2004 version of my oh God. Anyway, but that's what I think is potentially possible. I also think that because they've been selling this strict constructionist bullshit for as long as they can, right? About how like leave it up to the states, leave it up to the states. You and I, we all know that that's actually bullshit. But if they wanted to keep up the veneer of it, they could be like, look, it's up to the voters of Colorado, blah, 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 right? And they could just kind of pawn it off like that. And, you know, be like, look, you probably weren't going to win Colorado anyway. What does it matter? Use Colorado as fodder for the rest of your other, campaign things,
Right.
blah, 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 whatever you want to do. That's if they have any integrity left. And that's a big if.
That's a big if.
So, that's a big if.
Can I ask like maybe a kind of a stupid question?
Sure.
This is just so both Colorado and Maine. This is just booting him off of the primary ballot. So, I mean, I'm not. Does this also apply? Are they suggesting that this should also apply to the general then as well? Why does everybody have in such a tizzy over this? I mean, I know that the Supreme Court could make that really complicated, and other states could go ahead and say that he's not allowed on the general election ballot either. But I'm not understanding where the like he's just kicked off the primary ballot thing comes in and what the significance of that is.
Oddly enough, you just teed up the deep dive for today. It has to do with candidate selections because state laws exist now that make access to the general ballot only accessible through the primary process. So if you kick them off the primary ballot, they don't have a chance at the general election ballot. And it solves the problem, right? You have to be a nominated candidate to be on the ballot. And the process through which you become the nominee is the political party's nominating process, which defaults to their primary and caucus rules, which is what we're talking about on the deep dive today. I love
wow, that was perfect. How that teed up there. Yeah, I totally did that on purpose.
If you did that on, I was going to say, did you do that on purpose, or is this just one of those moments where the kids asks the perfect question?
Yeah, it was one of those two options. But speaking of that, so yeah, it's so stay tuned. If you're not subscribed on Patreon, go ahead and head over to patreon.com, patreon.com/just buy less copy, just buy less copy. Just buy less coffee. You can subscribe $5 a month. I need coffee, clearly. You subscribe $5 a month, get access to our exclusive behind the scenes content, which includes our new revived deep dive series, which we are continuing today. We're going to pick up where we left off after the 68 Democratic Convention and the crazy 68 primary and Democrat Civil War. So, yeah, Kathy just teed that up beautifully. Exclusive for our Patreon subscribers, the deep dive content. We're going to end this episode in a little bit and go into that deep dive, only visible to Patreon subscribers. So head on over and subscribe to that today to get access to that content. But yeah, really interesting stuff there, Kathy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Speaking of the November ballot, I'm going to kind of jumping around here a little bit. So Florida, your home state of Florida, the free state of Florida, will have an abortion rights referendum on the November ballot. This came out this week. So this Florida initiative, they got enough signatures. They collected so far 910,000, almost 911,000 signatures, more than the 891,000 needed by February to qualify for the November ballot. So there will be an initiative on the Florida ballot in November that would protect abortion until viability, which is 24 weeks, which is the standard sort of what people push for. So protect abortion until about 24 weeks. It would need 60% of voter approval to pass. The current Florida law is 15 weeks, bans after 15 weeks. So yeah, interesting. But what my thought on this and the takeaway on this is that just now Florida is very much in play in the general election, at least in my theory. You're the Florida person. What do you think about this abortion rights referendum? And do you think this really because this will get a lot of friggin' people out, like in Ohio and Kansas. It's gonna get a lot of people out to support this referendum that may not have voted otherwise, and you're going to see a lot of Democrat leading independents show out for this. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Florida's in play now in 2024?
I think it's definitely in play, and that's why they fought so hard to keep this off the ballot.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
they put a lot of legwork into trying to make this not happen. They fought the language on it. Ashley Moody, almost like she's our whatchamacallit, state attorney,
Yeah.
and she almost like personally went after this one
Okay.
because there's already, I believe, a referendum on the ballot for recreational marijuana. So if you put both recreational marijuana and abortion access on the same ballot, you get to see whether or not Florida is still a swing state. And I think we still very much are. Like I know the last election, 2022, wouldn't have made people think that with how Ron DeSantis was reelected with such large numbers. But I will also remind you that he was, one, out there intimidating voters, and two, running against Charlie Crist. So, yeah. So I think that Florida might not be as solid red as these Republicans like to go around claiming lately. And I think we're all about to see that in live action.
So this was a long time coming, is what you're saying in this?
Oh yeah, we've been working on this one for like basically since the Roe ruling leaked.
Okay.
Because if you remember, Ron DeSantis signs that 6-week abortion ban like in the middle of the night without anybody knowing about it.
Yeah.
That was immediately challenged in court because we have in our state constitution protections for abortion rights that like even mentions that would exist even with an overturning of Roe versus Wade. Like that exists in Florida's constitution. Okay. So his 6-week abortion ban was already stayed.
Right. Because that's the one they're trying to do is a 6-week, and it's not there yet. It hasn't been enacted yet.
So basically, what this referendum is meant to do is to clarify any like gray areas in the current language of the Constitution, to make sure that we are just straight up like, nope, let's be as clear as we fucking can on this one. And that is, yeah, you can't outlaw abortion in the state famous for spring break. Come on. That was an inappropriate joke, and I apologize to the priests. Sorry, Father.
Yeah, that's not very Catholic of you. Yeah, weed and abortion. Wow, that's what people want, man. That's what people want. And
says a lot about Florida, doesn't it? It says a lot about what's on the ballot: weed and abortion.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I think Florida is still very much like you said. Florida's still a pretty swingy state. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. It's just really exciting that these state level ballot initiatives are making it on here to kind of give Republicans the middle finger there. So
love it.
That's a lot of signatures. It's basically 1 million signatures.
It's they did that on purpose. They did that as the flex because they know Ashley Moody's coming at them. They know she's going to challenge every signature. So they were like, "How about we just double the requirement? Then you can challenge. You're going to challenge all of them."
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're going to go through probably now and like find like individual signatures and ways to challenge them. Absolutely. So yeah, so we'll see what happens in Florida there on weed and abortion. But again, I just think that this, like you saw in Kansas and some of these other elections, this is not a winning issue for Republicans. It's going to bring a lot of people out that don't want to see this kind of crap enacted in their state. Even a lot of Republicans don't want to see these draconian abortion bans. So, and if you have weed on there too, you're going to get a lot of people out. So it might spell doom for the Republicans. Speaking of swingers and new and different lifestyles and all this. Lord Boebert is swinging out of her district. She's not running again in her district, which I believe is the 3rd district of Colorado.
I saw that.
She will be running in a different contest following redistricting. So it's interesting.
I think it was it's like a weird law in Colorado that you don't actually have to live in the district that you represent.
Well, I'm not sure because listen to her excuse on this. It's a little bit lame. Her excuse for not running in her district is that she wants to get away from she's dealing with her personal life, and it has to do with her divorce. So she's moving to get away from the ghosts of her, her previous marriage or whatever, moving into a different district to run. The problem with that, Kathy, is that her district is fucking enormous. It's basically half the state is her district. She makes it sound like it's on her, like your district is just her block, like just her neighborhood that she has to leave or whatever. There's a lot of places that she could move to if she's truly if she truly wants to leave the ghosts of her past behind and still be in the same district where she could run for re-election there. So a little bit of where would she have to go that far to get away from? She could move literally to the other side of the state and still be in the same congressional district if she really needed to get away.
So. It's because she knows she's going to lose. That's why she's doing it. Because the district she's trying to run in is like a solid red, right? Like as red gets.
It is. Well, but her current district is solid red. She's such a crappy candidate, and again, she won by 400 votes or something in 2022.
Yeah. And so the guy running against her is outraising her, bidding her all sorts of stuff.
He's the most successful. He has the most successful fundraising campaign of a Democratic candidate for House. He's killing it. He's blown her out of the water at fundraising numbers. Her polling numbers are garbage. In her own district, the Republicans in her district have not been shy about the fact that they're shopping around for another candidate because they have had it with her. The Beetlejuice thing was the last straw, but they just can't. She's a terrible candidate. She's a terrible congresswoman. Does not represent the district well at all. Some might even say she's an embarrassment. So her Democratic opponent they're basically tied in a ruby red district, and her Democratic opponent is just destroying her in fundraising. So. And she barely won last time, so it's she could see the writing on the wall there. Getting felt up in Beetlejuice did not help things for her. So
yeah, that's true. But to that I'll say it's possible that just like Florida might not be as ruby red as they think, that district might not be as ruby red as they think anymore. Maybe. Because they're fed up with her, sure, but she's pretty representative of what the Republican Party at large exists as right now. And them being that fed up with her could be the beginnings of us seeing them fed up with that way of being a party. And like I said, a desire to pull them back to the good old days of George W. I just threw up saying that. But yeah, I think all of this could go hand in hand. Republican corruption as it exists might actually be the only thing saving us from Republican corruption, right? Because shady backdoor Republican deals to tell the court to keep Trump off the ballot so they can push Haley so they stand a chance at beating Biden. You tell me they're not corrupt enough to try that.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Haley's gonna. I don't think she has the support. I don't think that Haley's going to have the.
I don't think either. But you, me, we've all said that if Biden was running against Nikki Haley, he would have a different campaign to run. He'd have to actually, the we're saving democracy fight wouldn't work, and that's his strongest fight against Trump. But then again,
all she has to do is keep talking about how she had black friends growing up, and justifying her position on slavery in the Civil War, though. Man, she's had a couple of shitty gaffes over the last couple weeks or so. She's not an unpolished amateur politician. She's not new. She was the governor of South Carolina. She was the ambassador to the UN. Nor is she some neo-Confederate racist. You know what I mean? She knows that talking about the evils of slavery and racism is not going to do her any favors with MAGA. And
That's exactly
she
it.
grew up like she came up in the political world of the South, where you don't talk about fucking slavery. And as a Republican, you don't talk about slavery and
Yeah,
get
you
elected.
can't. Like, and remember when she was governor, she removed the Confederate flag from the state house and
Exactly.
took a lot of heat for it. But she
Oh yeah.
actually, like, pretty bravely stood up and said, "No, fuck this," basically. But like to me, her fumbling those answers is proof that she is an old school Republican that does not know how to navigate MAGA.
Right.
Which, so
Right.
if they wanted to put a nail in MAGA, which they should, like if then she's the one that they need to jump behind, because Ron DeSantis is just trying to be MAGA. So is Ramaswamy, right? Chris Christie's a dick. So she is the only chance they have at restoring the Republican Party to anything resembling what it once was. And I don't know.
But she's like disavowing Trump personally, but continuing the MAGA brand. I guess that's what she has to do to try and win this
That's what
primary.
she, I think, has to do. But I do think that her at least winning the primary would start to tone the party down, because the MAGA voters would hate Biden more than they would hate her, I would want to assume.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, she is a good candidate.
Mm,
It's just about whether the Republicans want a good candidate or whether they want Trump, and I don't know if they want
that's
anybody but
true.
Trump. But
Let's
yeah,
just say she's the one I
Haley
would
Biden,
least likely leave the country for.
Haley Biden race would be a lot better for the Republican ticket, I think, than a Trump Biden race. But here's the thing: is like the one thing you can say about, and this is where we're at with the state of our politics, is what you can say about Nikki Haley is that if she lost, she would concede and move on and wouldn't try to
Yep.
overthrow our democracy to,
Yep. That is
and
true.
that like that alone makes her preferable to Donald Trump. But that's where we're at as a
That's
society.
how low the bar is, guys. That's how low the bar is. Did you see that Trump like wouldn't sign the thing in Illinois that he wouldn't advocate for the overthrow of government?
Yeah, yeah. He's been
Like it's like
he's
largely
been all over the
symbolic,
map.
but
He
like,
also said that like
yo,
he was also criticizing Lincoln's. He saw like I'm telling you like this slavery stuff is not hurting Nikki Haley at all with the base of the Republican Party. They don't want to talk about slavery. Trump came out this week and said it was sort of criticizing Lincoln's like policies on slavery. He's talking about how Lincoln should have negotiated his way out of the Civil War. So going after the sacred cow that is Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party now over slavery.
like this is how you know he didn't learn any history, because famously he tried,
Yeah.
and that's why he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, because he couldn't negotiate his way out. So he said basically, "Fuck you. How about this?" And that.
If Abraham Lincoln had only read The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump, we probably wouldn't
Right?
have a civil
I
war,
swear to
is what
God.
he's suggesting. Oh God, what a
I have
clown.
no words. No words.
But they're all gonna be doubling down on Haley's like slavery stuff now. But
Yikes.
oh, what a mess. What an absolute mess.
A mess. For
We're just
sure.
about out of time. I do want to cover some economic numbers real quick because nobody else is. 250,000 jobs added in December. That's the 37th straight month of job growth. 37 straight months. So that means we're not in a recession because the economy's still growing. Unemployment under 4% for 24 straight months. It's back down to 3.7. It was at 3.9 for a couple of months, back down to 3.7, but under 4% for 24 straight months. Inflation has fallen to 3.1% year over year, heading down to the target number of 2%. That's the lowest inflation of all G7 nations. I think like the UK is still at 6-7% or something like that. Stock market breaking records. Dow and S&P are like Dow is, this is the best the Dow Jones has ever done in history. S&P is also having historic numbers. But a lot of people will be like, oh, the fucking stock market isn't the economy, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's true. It's not, just the stock market is not representative of how like sort of everyday Americans are doing in their lives. But stock market doing well is good for 401ks. It is good for retirement plans. And that does have a good ripple effect on workers in the economy. The Fed's set to cut interest rates multiple times in 2024, which means it will be more affordable in 2024 eventually to buy a house and all this. So my
Or a
question,
car.
couple of questions. Well, yeah, sort of. My question, Kathy, is what does all this mean, and at what point because Kathy's our economist here. What does all this mean, for the election, and At what point do Americans need to? At what point are Americans going to start to feel the good economy? Because the economy is objectively doing really well. What we keep hearing from people is that Americans aren't feeling the good economy, and so therefore it's not real. So at what point do Americans start feeling this good economy? Is it actually a good economy, or is it just the disconnect between the numbers and like what everyday people are actually experiencing is just too great now?
The answer to that is yes. um, yes, it is actually a good economy, like finger quote good. Like all of the indicators, all of the things that we use to measure the economy, finger quote, are showing positive results, right? Like all of these things, like you just listed, all of those are good things. Are we going to see prices come down? Not likely, because prices aren't supposed to come down. Disinflation is bad. Like price levels dropping is usually the sign of a collapsing economy. We don't want prices to come down. We want wages to go up. And that is what's
Yes.
necessary. That is all it is. And I explain this to people a lot. Like the math doesn't know where the money is. The math just knows the money is there. For an economy to be this strong, it's going to be making a lot of money. So this strong economy wants money cycling through it. The problem comes when money all starts to pool somewhere and it doesn't cycle through, and that's where the gears get jammed. The only way that you're going to, one, be able to maintain this economy, and two, make people understand that it's functioning, are for wages to increase. The same thing happened in the 1990s, right? Wages jumped really high because they had to raise minimum wage, and as a result, everybody's wages grew. A lot of people made a lot of money. Where boomers got rich, man. Come on, the 90s. And I say all the time, inflation only matters if wages don't keep pace.
Right.
Your prices can be whatever they want to be as long as your wages grow at the same rate. And it's going to require federal policy at this point. So, what does it mean for the election? If I was running Biden's campaign, I would put in his policy, we are going to push like COLAs, which are cost of living adjustments. So, federally required COLAs that are chain linked, which means attached to inflation. So every single year, every employee in the country will get a cost of living adjustment to their wages equal to the CPI.
Perfect.
Right? Perfect, right?
Yeah.
Then any performance-based raises that you get it would have to be written into the legislation, because a lot of times what companies will do is they'll do your performance raise, subtract any COLAs that are at the state level required. So say they give you a 3% raise, but the state requires a 2% COLA. Instead of adding those together, they include it. Does that, like, they supplant instead of supplement? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then the policy at the federal level would need to be written such that you're federally mandated to provide a CPI chain linked cost of living adjustment in addition to any performance based pay, right? It'd
God, I
have
would
to be
love that.
written.
I would
It
love
would be
that.
perfect, right? And it would solve the inflation
And it will
problem. 'Cause
never
then
happen.
well, yeah, well, it could happen. It's happened before, not like at the federal. It's happened at state levels in some places. But the policy isn't hard to pass, and it would be very popular because you sell that as, imagine if inflation never mattered again.
Right. Yeah.
Imagine if inflation never mattered again. Like
Imagine if
you'd have
inflation was good, because then you got a raise. You know what I mean?
Imagine
Like
if
if
inflation
CPI
was
went
a
up,
good
you got a
thing,
raise.
right? Yeah. And obviously you'd still want to control for it. You'd want to like still put things in place because economies like stability, but that would provide the stability. A COLA, a chain linked to CPI, would be what we call an automatic stabilizer, right?
Right.
It
Right.
exists in the economy. It is always there, and it keeps the ratio between price levels and wages at such that the economy continues to grow at a slow, steady, safe pace. It's that
Right.
simple. So add it to the campaign, promise to do it, make Republicans explain to voters why they don't deserve a raise to match inflation in the middle of an inflation crisis. Tell them that Democrats will forever make sure that inflation matches your wages, and Republicans are actively fighting to make sure your wages stay low. Try and win that. Even have trying Donald Trump. Even try to get Donald Trump to win a re-election, saying that he won't let your boss be forced to give you a raise.
Well, it also sort of combats the corporate greed factor, because I think what we experienced in the last couple of years was actually sort of a false inflation where companies got away with jacking up their prices, And they saw that prices are never going to come down. Once the prices are up, prices are up. Like companies are never going to voluntarily drop their prices.
Yep. Your wages have to
but
follow.
like you said, the problem is not the prices going up. The problem is that the wages are staying the same as the prices go up. So.
Yeah, the problem is that the prices of goods and services are going up, but the prices of labor are not going up. And the inflation needs to be shared on both the supply and the demand side of the economy. And right now, consumers are bearing all of the burden. If the producer side of the economy, if the supply side of the economy, if businesses started to feel the inflation in the wage market, that would definitely control for prices on the consumer market.
I think a lot of the issues that people have with the current economy that they're trying to blame Biden for is just fundamental root problems with our economy, with our system.
It's
I mean,
leftover Reagan bullshit.
It's leftover Reagan bullshit. It's supply side economics. It has nothing to do with Biden. Didn't even really have anything to do with Trump. It's a 50-year trend of supply side economics that has screwed over the consumer, that has screwed over the worker. We dismantled unions, so our wages stopped going up. And shit's just too goddamn expensive. Wages have not kept up with prices. It's the student loans, the cost of going to college, the cost of healthcare, the cost of housing, the cost of food and basic goods. It's just too goddamn expensive to live in this society, and something's got to be done to control prices. Either control prices, which you don't want to do, or raise wages and get start paying people what they're worth and what their productivity is worth.
Yep. And that's what you need. They need labor policy. They need to push federally mandated high wages. And there's better ways to phrase it than I just said it. But that's what you got to do. You're not going to pull prices down. You're going to pull prices up. Wage prices.
We also need universal healthcare and universal education, but that's a whole other.
But we've only been trying for that since Abigail Adams. So,
Yeah. Just about out of time. We are going to go into our deep dive, talking McGovern-Fraser Commission, talking some Democratic insider baseball politics, primary elections, which is a good time to discuss right now with the Iowa caucuses. Like a week away, something like that.
You said caucus.
We are in primary season, so we're going to be talking some what that means and how primaries work. And
I love election season so much, man. You don't even know. I love election season so much.
We are officially in presidential election season again. Kathy, here we go.
Come on, election canon is fun though.
Election canon is
actually has anybody here seen election? Yeah. You've seen midterm election, Kathy. You've never seen presidential election.
Kathy is insane.
Ooh.
That's right. We were together for 2020. That's right. So
imagine Steve Kornacki with redheaded sass.
Are you trying to out Kornacki? That's hard to do.
Dude,
that's hard to claim.
Give us both a fucking whiteboard. I spend a lot of time at a whiteboard, man.
That's true. That's true. You know your way around a whiteboard.
Just as adorable, and I can explain polls.
Can you pull off khakis? Is the question?
No, I cannot.
Well, you're only being filmed from your neck up, so that's fine.
I'm too pale for khakis, man. It washes me out. It's just picture my pale ass in khakis.
So if we'll do a Patreon exclusive of Kathy and khakis. We're going to switch over to Patreon exclusive deep dive right now. So Patreon subscribers, check that out after this episode. Head on over to Patreon to get the additional content. For our non-subscribers, our regular listeners, we will say goodbye now. Thank you so much, everybody, for your support. We are back and going strong. Kathy and I, thank you for sticking with us through this period of transition. We love you guys. Check out the video content on YouTube on the Just Buy Less Coffee YouTube channel. You can see the regular video content there without the bonus content for the Patreon people. If you're listening to the audio version, click that download button to help our download numbers. Thanks everybody, and we will see everybody next time. You've been listening to Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics, featuring Troy Matthews at Keep Troy Blue and Kathy Cannon at Cannon's Fodder. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and X. All opinions are our own.